So, Dr. Carole, always good to have you in Abu Dhabi at ADIPEC again. Good guest, always good to have you. Let's talk about advanced technologies and AI. It's a hot topic now. How is it going to help the energy transition, in your opinion?
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to be here at ADIPEC. It has been my annual ritual. I cannot miss it. Well, look, there are lots of themes we discussed this year, but definitely digitalization, artificial intelligence is capturing great interest. And actually one of the panels I moderated, the first panel, was on this topic. And there is a big question whether AI and digitalization in general will accelerate the energy transition. Definitely there is a big contribution for AI and digital technologies to make things better, faster, more efficient, reduce human errors. So it's quite hopeful that, and especially that the energy transition, what we're trying to achieve in the next 20, 30 years has never been done before in terms of scale, in terms of speed. So that's why we can pin our hope on digital technologies. But there is no such a thing as a perfect technology. There is always the other side of the coin, which we need to discuss openly to be aware of the challenges, because we shouldn't forget that digital technologies are a big absorber of data. We talk about cloud, but it's not the cloud hanging in the sky, right? It requires lots of cabling. It requires lots of power consumption. Digital technologies are power hungry. So as we expand our consumption of and use of energy, of artificial intelligence, we are going to increase in parallel our consumption of energy. So while we are using AI to optimize energy use, we need more energy to achieve target. And that is a kind of contradiction we have at this stage, and we need to put more effort into understanding how we can meet that demand, that growth in demand. And that's why we see companies such as Amazon and Google. They are now investing into small modular reactors for nuclear power in order to secure a greater supply of energy. So there is no such a thing as a silver bullet that's going to answer our problems and solve our problems for the energy transition. AI can help, but it comes with its own challenges that require more attention.
You mentioned the small modular reactors and the nuclear, which is a key player in this energy transition. What's the outlook for this?
When I talk about nuclear, I have to look at it from a global perspective. So global perspective, I feel that nuclear has passed its heydays globally. And why I'm saying that, I might be well wrong in the next few years, but when I look at the data, if you look at the share of nuclear in the global primary energy mix, it peaked in the mid-1990s. And since then, we see overall decline. We do occasionally some hype, but then we see a decline again. So nuclear, even though it has a clear advantage over wind and solar because you generate a lot of clean energy at scale and without variability. So if the sun is not shining, the wind is not blowing, you don't have to worry about where your electricity comes from. But it comes with challenge. You have the capital expenditure, you have the safety, you have the regulations, you have the technology aspect. So in that respect, if I look at it globally, I don't see the picture changing dramatically. I see some regions going bigger on nuclear, but other regions retracting from nuclear. We see some decommissioning of old reactors. Some countries in the EU, they don't want to see nuclear expansion. And we saw in 2022, the EU hesitantly included nuclear with natural gas, imagine, in their taxonomy for sustainable investment, and they say strict conditions apply. So we do see nuclear gaining popularity in China, here in the Middle East, with the UAE being the first Arab country to have nuclear power, and it's bringing lots of benefits, but globally it's not a homogeneous picture.
When we talk about hydrogen or green hydrogen, usually incentives comes along with it. How can this be realistically achieved so we can see it in the market more?
Again, with hydrogen, one of the issues I face is that we wonder whether it's a hype today because everybody's talking about hydrogen. Everybody has become an expert in hydrogen. But I feel that we're still guessing because there is no market for hydrogen. Now, one of the things you touched on is very important, that is incentives. In almost every single discussion I contributed to, when you talk about green energy, we see that there is a need for government incentives, government support. Now, it makes me think, if we're talking about financial incentives, especially if you talk about Europe or elsewhere where governments are hugely indebted, hydrogen wants incentives, solar wants incentive, wind wants incentives, biofuels wants, everybody wants incentive. Who's going to fund all that? So I fear that the more we have to rely on these financial incentives, the more limited the growth potential of the sector. Now, of course, there's great potential for hydrogen, better cooperation between the technology providers, the actual investors in hydrogen, governments and regulatory bodies. But I feel given the scale that we need and the time that we need, we have a very steep mountain ahead to establish a global market for hydrogen. I want to highlight one thing which I said earlier in one of the panels, because I just was thinking about liquefied natural gas. LNG, the technology has been here for decades, maybe from the 50s or the 60s. But look how long it took us to establish a more global market, and still not a global market. I'm not saying that hydrogen will have to take such a long time, but it takes a while to achieve a global market for hydrogen. And that's why I say what we are trying to achieve today has not been done before, whether in terms of scale or speed. And these are the two main challenges.